Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is also known as the best game of the year. Not a controversial take, by the way. Well, the game follows the story of this guy. That's right, it's our favorite cardiovascularly challenged protagonist, Henry of Gaslit. And today we're gonna be stress testing his sprinting capabilities, as he will be doing a whole lot of running away and towards the Hungarians. Now, why is that, you may ask? Well, to cut a long story short, I like KCD2 quite a lot, but I also like this little niche game known as Skyrim, which is why I thought, hey, why not combine the two and answer the question, can you beat KCD2, as Todd Howard would want you to, or simply the Stealth Archer run? Now, in order for all of us to be on the same page in this challenge run, I guess I'm not sure what to call it yet, we need to set a few ground rules which are as follows. Firstly, the only way I can kill enemies is either by using longbow, crossbow, fists, or by using mount. I am also not allowed to use any kind of melee weapon apart from stealth killing with a dagger, mainly to save time, to be honest. I am also not allowed to use any kind of game-breaking glitches that would give me an advantage. I also have to win every possible duel in the main campaign, meaning no dishonorable killing, as this would make the challenge way too easy. Lastly, I have to try and solve as many problems as possible using stealth whenever the possibility of it arises. Now, with the rules for this challenge laid out, let's get right into it. We begin by choosing both the speech-related options during the Captain Thomas encounter, mainly because speech is extremely useful in this game and at the same time it is one of the hardest skills to level, so any extra XP in it is always welcome. I then managed to convince Oates to spare some of his food for Mud, and proceed to stash all my money in the chest as it will come very handy later in the run. I then get ready to destroy his lordship with my bare fists when I get quite unpleasantly surprised that no matter how hard I tried to sheathe my sword, I couldn't. I was unfortunately forced to beat him using the wooden sword. Luckily, this was the only instance in the whole run where the game forced me to fight with a melee weapon, so I guess I'm just gonna forget that this ever happened and continue. Unless that is you, my dear viewer, want to call the challenge failed, then feel free to do that, I guess. I then choose speech for reasons I mentioned before, scholarship as the explorer perk will come in quite handy, and marksmanship because I'm obviously going to be primarily using a bow in this playthrough. I then continue with the tutorial until I'm finally faced with my first real opponent, and oh boy, do I get my ass handed to me concerningly quickly. I'm just hoping that this is not foreshadowing how the rest of this run will be. As you can see, I managed to dodge him a few times and even get a few hits in, which dealt literally 0 damage to him before I inevitably get one shot without even scraping his health bar. Yep, it's not looking good at all. So anyway, fast forwarding a little bit, I finally finish the tutorial and get to Trosky, where I immediately go and speak to this woman here for some lockpicks and a grand sum of 5 groschen. Now I think it's finally time to explain what my strategy will be for this run. So, first of all, in order for me to have any chance at winning a fight against anyone, I will have to power level my marksmanship as soon as I can, really. Well, the problem is that in order for me to do that efficiently, I would certainly like the 50% experience boost from Henry's Fox potion, meaning that I need to first level my alchemy all the way to 16 for the Secret of Secrets perk. Luckily, it shouldn't take that long since alchemy is fairly easy to level. I also thought that once I finally get my hands on this potion, I will power level my thievery while I'm still in Trosky, since I think it actually fits the Stealth Archer playstyle very well, and as a nice bonus it might be quite useful later in the run. So basically I will first level my alchemy, then thievery, and finally marksmanship before I even think about going out and doing any quests. So with that being said, I immediately got to work by picking a whole bunch of marigold and nettles scattered all around Trosky so that I can spam the marigold decoction for some quick alchemy XP. Once I made my first few potions, I go ahead and sell them in the local alchemist shop, and I immediately spend all my newly made capital on some belladonna. This is because there's barely any belladonna around the Trosky area, so I can't exactly just collect it, but also I will need it to not only make the fox potion itself, but also to make a bunch of saber snaps. Which, let me tell you from experience, they are absolutely invaluable when leveling thievery, as otherwise I would have to restart the process ever so often after I inevitably get way too greedy and get caught by the guards. Finally, once I create my first batch of Henry's Fox, I immediately drink one up, and under the cover of the night I go house to house stealing and lockpicking as much as I possibly can. And oh boy, did I steal and lockpick a lot. Now, the keen-eyed among you may have noticed that I also stole a bunch of skill books. As I mentioned before, I'm trying to get the Explorer perk as soon as possible so that I can save a bunch of time spent on just discovering the map. Now, I know, this is part of the fun, but I already played through this game once, so I'd rather just get it done quickly. Also, for those of you who didn't know, there's a secret skill book right here under the Trosky Rat House. Finally, after just one night of going crazy and stealing everything in sight, these are the results. We managed to reach level 20 in Thievery and level 10 in Stealth. For now, I think this should be way more than enough, and with that I finally set my eyes on the long marksmanship grind. So I immediately set out for the shooting range in Trosky Castle to do just that. Now, there are several ways to level up your marksmanship in this game. The least efficient one by far is to use bandits as practice targets. This one definitely is off limits for me because I'm not even sure I can kill one bandit at this point. The other is to win archery tournament, which gives a decent amount of XP. However, from my experience, the absolute fastest way to level marksmanship and the way up as far in this run, as you can clearly see, is by standing as far as possible from the competition target and continuously shooting at it until you get crippling carpal tunnel. And so after the most boring 30 minutes of my life, I have managed to reach main level of 17, strength 17, agility of 20, warfare level of 22, and marksmanship of 26. On a real note though, I've never realized how insanely overpowered this method is at gaining a ton of XP for almost all of the most important skills in the game. It genuinely only took me like 30 minutes or so, including the time spent collecting the arrows, to get these results. To put it in perspective, I reached these stats in my normal playthrough after doing several quests in Kuttenberg area. And here I barely finished the tutorial, which is insane. With our skills at a satisfactory level, I wanted to test them out as soon as possible, so I immediately head out to the bandit camp around the lake area, where we got ambushed in the beginning of the game. Unfortunately, right before I reached my destination, a couple bandits decided to stop me in my tracks. And well, as you can see, apart from the fact that my aim is absolutely terrible and the bandits can somehow tank several arrows straight to their face, I'd say for my first ever encounter as a stealth archer, it went pretty well. Next time though, I'll try to be a little more, well, stealthy. Once I reach the camp, I climb onto a nearby hill to get a vantage point on my opponents. I then start unloading all my arrows into them while trying to remain hidden. However, that quickly changes as due to my pretty low stealth skill and me doing this in broad daylight, I get discovered almost immediately. Not much of a stealth archer am I, huh? Anyway, I need to quickly change my strategy to playing a cat and mouse game with the bandits, and somehow, after a bit of arduous work, I managed to pull off a win here. And clean up all the loot as well as the previously left coin in the chest, which gives me a decent sum of groschen for any upcoming expenses such as better bows and potion ingredients. I did learn one thing from this battle however, and that's that I will have to power level my stealth significantly if I want to stay true to being a real stealth archer, rather than just being a, well, loud archer or something. If I only knew what the antonym to stealth is. Next on my agenda is to finally make some progress with the main quest by helping the miller, as his quests fit the stealth archer playstyle significantly better than the smith does, I think at least. Additionally, the miller can give me access to some of the best stealth clothing in the whole game, so it will be extra worth it to finish his questline. So I obviously go ahead and steal the manuscript for him, and then begin the most boring and tedious quest in the game, which is of course, helping out the knacker. Well, at the very least, his reward is decent, as he gives us one of the best stealth gloves in the game. Which are... the knacker's gloves. The name is certainly not the most creative. I also decided to do a few side quests that I thought would help later down the line. One of them is the Birds of Prey quest, as for some reason I thought that Vostatek sells a really good bow and some decent arrows. However, I don't think that's true unfortunately. I also did the fist fighting quest line and learned a new unarmed combo, but then I realized you can only use the combo on other unarmed opponents, so it also wasn't really needed. I then decided to save Pavlena. Why, you may ask? Because come on, as an archer, how could I possibly pass up the opportunity to aura farm this hard? Well, finally after all these absolute time wasters, I decided to try and increase my damage dealing capabilities so that I don't have to stick 8 hours into a peasant's face for him to go down. Well, I thought that the best way to do that would be to make some poisonous arrows, and well, later in the run, you will see just how much more powerful the poisons make you. Let's just say I think in the future I'll avoid using them, as they basically allowed me to one-shot anyone even in full plate armor. Although, now that I think about it, that's basically the Skyrim Stealth Archer experience, so maybe it is fine after all. I then also bought the last few books needed to boost me to level 18 of Scholarship to finally get the Explorer perk. Next, I started Edelyn's quest. However, before I actually go to the wedding itself, I decided to do some final preparations. First of all, I went ahead and found my loyal companion Mutt, which turned out to be very challenging, as while I not only had to fight 7 or 8 wolves with just my fists and no armor, but also because of my insanely low damage output, I kept getting stun locked from behind by the wolves. Luckily though, I did manage to pull it off for my first try. I don't really know how. But as you can see, the damage was absolutely abysmal, and although Mutt was able to help by keeping 1 or 2 wolves away, I still had to keep track of several wolves at the same time. So I guess I'm gonna try to stay away from fighting animals in the future, simply because, to be honest with you, it's not a very enjoyable experience at all. Anyway, my final preparation before the wedding was finally power leveling my stealth up to level 30, so that I can be, well, more stealthy. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is to simply go back to that first camp we cleared in the beginning of the playthrough, and usually there should be about 3 or 4 bandits sleeping there at all times. At which point we can simply walk in circles around them to increase stealth at an absolutely rapid pace. After I got done doing that, and selecting my perks, I finally got to the wedding, and to be honest with you, I'm gonna keep it kind of brief, because not much really happened. I won a few games of dice and managed to get the golden badge. The only reason I really did that is to flex my full set of Saint Antiochus dice. I then also managed to beat the shit out of the groom, Svatia, and Lord Semine himself with my bare fists. And on the side note, this was surprisingly easy to do. In fact, I would say it's actually way easier to beat them this way than using the wooden sword, as for some reason each hit deals a guaranteed amount of damage, which I suspect is due to their complete lack of armor, and they also don't chain any of their attacks, making it super easy to dodge. Most importantly though, Henry managed to engage in bohemian courtship at the wedding. Or, more appropriately, Riz. That's right, Henry's alter ego Henry of Rizlitz appeared, and not only to strike once, but twice in a single wedding. Truly a generational performance. Granted, that second appearance may have been a more impressive display of Riz by the opposite gender, since I had 3 speed checks in a row, allowing me to back out. Anyway, I then find the maiden, make her feel better, and get into a massive bar fight. And that's basically the wedding over. Finally, we move on to the Saving Capon quest. Now, I tried to save Capon in the most faithful to the run way possible, which is obviously by engaging in absolute peak gameplay. No, but actually it's by assassinating as many guards as I saw and stealthily infiltrating the castle, and I ended up killing quite a lot of guards indeed. This one here was my first victim, after whom I just spiraled out of control and started killing every guard in my way. Actually, before that, I looted this insanely opulent chest in the bathhouse, and also tried to get a book for the miller from the scribe, but he didn't seem to want to talk to me until after the execution. I then killed a guard up here. Met up with Catherine. Killed some noble lady. Knocked out the scribe. Got the remedy. Killed another guard. And another one. And also a few more. By the way, I want you to notice how Burgrave Hashek here is most certainly dead right now. Just keep this in mind for later. I also got the Ockham's Razor and finally saved Captain Thomas. So once Capon is saved and medieval Santa Claus here falls on his noble ass, I get promoted from a convict to a diplomat. And so I then move on to the next quest. Now, as you all I'm sure are well aware, we are about to do the Nabakov infiltration quest. However, before doing that, there are a few upcoming duels that I'm, let's just say, slightly afraid of. So I decided to try and beat Black Partosh here, first with my bare fist, to see if it's even possible to damage someone in full plate armor this way. As you can see, the fight is pretty rough to put it mildly. Luckily for me, however, I managed to beat him once. As it turns out that it's indeed possible to damage someone in full plate armor with your fists. Unluckily for me, however, is that the only way I can do that is when my opponent is at literally 0 stamina, which is more than a little bit concerning. But if it can bleed, it can die, I guess. After that endeavor, I went ahead and started the journey to the Nabakov right away. And finally, I met my Grim Reaper, the god of war, the Kratos of Bohemia, aka Michael. This guy here, he made me suffer. And I'm just gonna let the footage speak for itself. I watched this absolute brute bash my skull in with his hammer so many times he might have given me PTSD in real life. But somehow, after the same amount of time I took to beat Melania from Elden Ring, I managed to beat him. And oh boy did it feel good. The trick here was to aim every strike right at his face where he wasn't covered by any armor, as depleting his stamina bar was next to impossible with his extreme passiveness in the fight. And of course the good news is that this was the only duel left in the game where I'd have to go for something like that, right? Right? For now, however, the rest of the quest was pretty uneventful. I just won an archery competition to get a cool crossbow, beat some smelly guy in a horse race, and that's right, Henry of Rizlitz had to strike again, this time with Clara. And finally I found out that the bandits took over the fortress, so naturally I hurried my ass over to Santa to snitch. I then get ordered to torture a poor fella in the dungeon. Obviously this isn't an evil playthrough, so I just got the answers from him peacefully, and then stopped the raid on Semine from happening. But wait, how the hell is Mr. Burgrave still alive? I guess for some reason he just comes back to life whenever Mr. Santa here wants him to come over and listen. I guess that makes him canonically the most powerful character in the game from now on. And I finally reached the first critical point of the game. So of course, without any further ado, I start the party where Henry of Rizlitz, that's right, strikes again today for the 4th time. And I finally head out right into an ambush made by the bandits. I obviously had to get severely concussed, then wake up and start absolutely unloading my arrows into everyone that I see. I also saved the Chamberlain by shooting down the archers and... oh well, never mind, I guess Zeus himself smites him for what he did to the bathhouse wenches. Now finally I get to the next big duel of the game, which I was dreading for, to be honest with you, especially after how it went with Michael. However, it turns out Zizka is all talk and I beat him with relative ease on my second try. I guess fighting is not his strong suit, is it? Also, if you're wondering, yes, the game refuses to let you get into this fight without some kind of a melee weapon equipped. So it spawns in a hunting sword for you, and I of course immediately sheathed it though, but the cutscenes simply do not believe me. I then fight my way through the bandits as a drunk priest, yes, also with just fists, meet my arch nemesis, shoot some guns, and finally start defending the backup from the now very angry Bohemian Santa. And guys, I know I wasn't supposed to use guns technically, but I wanted all achievements, so I decided to do just one shot, and this might be the most insane shot I've ever hit in any game ever. After emptying all my luck for the next few days, I started cleaning up Santa's elves. And get my back blown out. Then I get saved from torture by the second best girl of the game and clean up all the Santa's elves in his castle until I get to Istvan's chambers. Of course, since Istvan has no shield and no armor, this fight went swimmingly and I demolished him on my first try. At least that's what I would want to say, since he turned out to be the true nightmare of my boy Henry. Just watch this. That's right, he certainly wasn't an absolute piece of cake, he was an absolute piece of hell. I genuinely rage quit in the middle there and had to take a 1-day break because this wasn't going anywhere, and I still don't understand why. By the way, each cut of me getting my ass handed to me is like 5 to 10 minutes worth of a fight, because it took this bloody long to deal any damage to him. And he should theoretically be taking very decent damage from each hit, as he has literally no armor. Now my theory is that due to the Radzig sword having such an insanely high defense stat, unless his stamina was completely empty and he physically couldn't block, he was just parrying all of my attacks, and I never even managed to hit him in the majority of the fight. Anyway, with the absolute nuisance finally over, I do the last few things before sneaking out of the castle. Getting close to the end of the video now, I fight my way through the bandits. And faced my last bit of challenge due to my own mistake by thinking that I had a dagger equipped. Honestly, I have no idea how I survived this. Now, whilst escaping from my pursuers in the night, I managed to score a sick 4 kill in the most stealth archer way possible using poisoned arrows. This is how I actually envisioned this build working. Unfortunately, in this part of the game, there weren't really that many scenarios where the build could truly shine. The main challenge was really just fist-fighting fully armored opponents, which was still pretty entertaining, I think. Finally, after those 4 kills, I find our transport and proceed to the Kuttenberg area. So I guess for now we could conclude that yes indeed, you can beat KCD2 as a stealth archer. Well, the first part of it at least. Now, that will be all for now, so let me know if you guys want to see a part 2, and see ya.